Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So I'm still parked at the Loves where I was. I'm just actually timing when I get on the road to make my delivery in Maine. I can't deliver till after midnight tonight, but I'm actually timing it so I get there around 6 a.m. tomorrow. My wife is already in Maine, so, but I didn't, my intent is to just drop my load and then bobtail out of there and go closer to where we're going to be staying at Acadia National Park. But I didn't want her to have to come get me in the middle of the night, so in an area that we're both not familiar with. So that's the plan. I'll get there around daybreak and drop my trailer and then meet up with her, park my truck somewhere. And there's some places I can park bobtail close by. So that's the plan. And then probably I get back on the road like Sunday or whatever. So I've had some time to think about some things and read up on some stuff and just read the normal press that I look at and see some different things. So I wanted to share a couple of things with you. So I'm excited about today's subscriber number because of the year it corresponds to. The channel's at 1,452 subscribers, so thanks to people that continue to subscribe. We usually pick up like one or two, but then sometimes we lose one or two. And I thought, well, if we're in stasis, I'll just backfill a little bit like I did the other day on things in ancient Greece. But so when I started checking into what happened in 1452, I was like, that's not that exciting, like almost like internal warfare and royal families and stuff. And unfortunately, in history, people like us never got in the history books, right? Because the history books were written by learned people who had had benefactors who were like royalty or rich people. So they really only talked about royalty and rich people. I mean, it shouldn't surprise you that a lot of what Shakespeare wrote was about royalty and about rich people and stuff. And it was because he had to keep the crown happy. He couldn't, and he picked his subjects carefully. But anyway, 1452, there was a birth in Italy that really would change the world and, influences us today. And this guy is probably as big as they come. Like, he's as important an historical figure as there is. And I'm talking about Leonardo da Vinci. Believe it or not, Da Vinci was born out of wedlock. And I say believe it or not, like, I think we have this notion that, back in the day everybody was married and everybody was like super religious and stuff, but it really wasn't the case. A lot of really famous people that went on to accomplish incredible things were born out of wedlock. Because it turns out that, since the beginning of time, people have been having sex out of wedlock and having children and stuff. So anyway, let's talk about Da Vinci, because obviously everybody's heard of him, so I'm not telling you about a person you haven't heard of. But, the guy is incredibly remarkable and probably, certainly a genius, but also a genius with incredible productivity and incredible breadth of contributions. So of course, Da Vinci is famous for being an artist, and certainly the Mona Lisa, which everybody has seen a picture of, and if you want to actually go see it, you can go to Paris and see it. But the Mona Lisa, the most famous painting in the world, and he also painted the Last Supper, which has been reproduced like a gazillion times. If you've seen a painting or a photo, not a photo, but an illustration or a depiction of the Last Supper, it's very likely that you've seen the Da Vinci version of that. And that was painted by commission. But the other thing that you may not know is Da Vinci is the Vitruvian Man, and here's a picture of that. So you probably recognize it. It's cool, right? It's on t-shirts, posters. You go to any college campus, there'll be some kid walking around with a t-shirt with Vitruvian Man on it. And the interesting thing about Vitruvian Man is that Da Vinci, while he was, first and maybe foremost an artist, his art was not just designed for commissions like the Last Supper, but it was just his curiosity and his ability to illustrate things. And I use the word illustrate because it wasn't necessarily painting, it was just drawings. But some of the stuff that he made, for instance, because he was an artist and he was pretty well known by a certain point in his life, he was allowed to go and dissect corpses. And he wasn't just doing it out of morbid curiosity. He was doing it out of curiosity, but he made tons of drawings of the human anatomy because he looked at it like a study of the body, which was important for artists. And but a lot of the stuff that he did that really was never like published or released, it would have been a seminal text on human anatomy. If you look at some of his drawings, you're like, dang, that's totally perfect, right? Because of course he was looking at a corpse, but it was incredible in that what he understood about the human body, like tendons, ligaments, dissection. He was the first guy really to document cirrhosis of the liver. He was the first guy to document arterial sclerosis. Like he dissected bodies and was like, okay, what's wrong with this body? Like he made comparisons, like, is this normal? Is this normal? Just incredible work. Biomechanics, huge contributions to biomechanics, just from his curiosity and his documentation. But here are some of the drawings that he made that so far predate. It's almost like he was a prophet, in the truest sense of the word, because some of the stuff that he designed or drew was so far advanced that no one else could even get their head around it, and certainly the systems that would have been necessary to make these things didn't exist for hundreds of years later. But here's some basics things that he drew. Musical instruments. He drew a detailed drawing for a mechanical knight, which we would call a robot, right? He envisioned that. Hydraulic pumps, reversible crank mechanisms. So if you crank your landing gear up and down in your trailer today, it's probably Da Vinci's design. So you can thank him. Finned mortar shells, right? So this is way before modern artillery. This is artillery. Finned mortar shells. I don't even think sorry about the glare. I don't even think finned mortar shells were in use before the early 1900s. I might be wrong about that, but I'm thinking about projectiles that I've looked at from the Civil War and stuff. There are rifled projectiles, but I don't. And by the way, the term mortar has changed over time. What a mortar was in the Civil War is not what it is in, say, World War II, Vietnam, the present day. But just incredible. A steam cannon. you think about like launching projectiles, and really the steam cannon like anticipates and I'm drawing a blank here, but I know what I mean. Anticipates launching aircraft off an aircraft carrier with a steam catapult. Parachutes. He designed several aircraft, like on paper, and a giant crossbow. And there was actually apparently back in 2003 there was a BBC special. You might be able to find it on YouTube where they took a lot of Da Vinci's drawings and said, okay, could this really work as designed? Not everything worked, right? But I mean, you think about the process of invention. I mean, to suppose that it would be, just really unrealistic. But some of the stuff did work as designed. So concentrated solar power was something else that he like envisioned and wrote and drew about. And the thing is, right, like Da Vinci, made the observation that the sun doesn't move. Now, certainly there were other inventors or people like Copernicus, I guess, that understood more about the solar system. But like Da Vinci was just like everything he saw, he would either understood it completely or he tried to figure it out. So it like I said, his contributions are endless. We could spend hours just talking about Da Vinci. But anyway, that's 1452. If for no other reason, that's why that year is important, is because that's the year Da Vinci was born. So anyway, let's talk about some other stuff that I've been thinking about. And I like Da Vinci, I have visions of things. I have ideas like how things should turn out. So, one of the things I like is college football. And, I'm an Iowa Hawkeyes fan, so I pay attention to the Big 10. Well, the Big 10 made news, a week or so ago, with the announcement that USC and UCLA, because they're really right in the heart of Big 10 country, we're going to become part of the Big 10. And I think there is a college arms race in the Power 5 conferences, and I think we're going to get down to like maybe a Power 3 or maybe even a Power 2. And in anticipation of that, because I'm like a Big 10 guy, right? Big 10, Iowa, and then I went to a Big 10 school for law also. Although, by the way, when I went to Maryland Law, Maryland was still in the ACC. In fact, that's the year that the Maryland men won the NCAA basketball championship. And I don't even know if Maryland has a football team. I think they do. Anyway, no, they do. They've actually had some guys that played in the NFL. Actually, a lot of guys that played in the NFL. They've had a lot of good players, and they've had some good teams over the years. Boomer Esiason played it at Maryland. Randy White, who I think is the only guy ever to win the Super Bowl MVP and be on the losing team. I think that's Randy White. Maybe some of you football scholars could look that up for me. Anyway, so in anticipation of the idea that there's this arms race, well, there is an arms race, but an idea that there's just going to be like 2 or 3 super conferences. What I did is I went through all the teams that are available and who should all be part of the Big 10. And by the way, the Big 10 already has, before they added USC and UCLA, they already had 14 teams. They didn't change their name. Like the Pac-10, which had changed from the Pac-8 back, and then there was Pacific Coast Conference or something. Anyway, so the Pac-12, when they added teams, they changed the number to reflect that. Big 10 didn't do that. So anyway, Big 10 was already at 14 teams. And just to review, sorry about the glare. Kind of going east to west. Rutgers, Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan State, Indiana, Purdue, Illinois, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska. Those are the 14 Big 10 teams. And then, like I said, we've added USC, the USC and UCLA. So what I said is that, okay, that puts us at 16. That could be 8 two-team divisions. Let's just ramp this up, because there's a lot of consternation out west, even, to the level of like the governor of California, about the fact that two schools are basically abandoning the conference. And let's be candid, those two schools are in the second largest media market in the country. And unlike, say, New York City media market, when either of those two teams in LA are playing well, they're like the biggest game in town. Lots and lots of USC and alum in California, and they have a pretty strong fan base, even when they're not doing well. But so anyway, what I said is, let's just up our game here at the Big 10, right? If I'm running the Big 10, I'm like, let's just up our game. So we feel like we've taken in this large media market in LA. Let's just take in some other large media markets, expand the conference, and then round it out at 24 teams. So let's add 10 more and just beat the SEC to the punch, right? Let's just take whoever, the teams that make sense for us, and preserve regional rivalries and just get this done. So here's my new Big 10, and we're still going to call it the Big 10. So in addition to those 14 teams that I named, we're going to add the following teams. We're going to add Pitt, West Virginia, so we could still have the backyard brawl as part of our conference. And if you think about it regionally, Pitt and West Virginia fit right in, right? Then we're going to add, in addition to Pitt and West Virginia, we're going to add Stanford and Cal. Now, Cal, part of the Cal thing is that the governor of California, and honestly, I think rightly so, says to UCLA, hey, you guys left this conference, but you left behind the other public California university. That's not cool. So we're just going to add Cal, and we're going to add Stanford because they're down the road, and they got a really pretty campus. And that gives us the Bay Area market, okay? So the NorCal market. Then we're going to add the Portland market by adding Oregon, and they've already been talked about anyway. Oregon's got a big program, and Oregon State, because we want to preserve the rivalry, and they're both public universities. And then on top of them, we're going to add Washington and Washington State. Why? In-state rivalry, the Seattle market. So we're basically going to corner everything, right? We're going to have New York, Chicago, LA, Seattle, Portland. We're going to have the Pittsburgh market. We're going to have the Cleveland market, the Columbus market. We're even going to have the Lincoln, Nebraska market. I mean, we're going to have everything, right? We're going to have everything. Michigan, you name it, right? So now you say, okay, 24 teams. So that's 3 8-team, not 18, 8-team divisions, right? That makes sense. Well, of course, it kind of makes sense if all you give a shit about is math, but I don't care that much about math. I care about animals and mascots. So here's how I'm going to divide up the Big 10 with my 24 teams that I just outlined. And this is going to require you knowing team mascots. I'm going to help, but if you already know them, it's going to be a big help. So the first division we're going to have is going to be called the Large Animal Division. And I've used the VAT board. Sorry about the glare. I've used the VAT board to illustrate the Large Animal Division. Okay, and basically the Large Animal Division in my scenario is big cats and bears, like grizzlies and stuff. So my Large Animal Division, big cats, right? Penn State, they're the Nittany Lions. I don't know what Nittany means. Actually, there's a Mount Nittany up in central PA. So Nittany Lions, they're kind of like mountain lions, but they're Nittany Lions. Pitt, they're the Panthers. Then I got, who do I have here? Oh, Northwestern, the Wildcats. They're just a generic brand of large cat, Wildcat. Then UCLA Bruins. If you don't know what a Bruin is, it's a grizzly bear. Okay. Cal are the Golden Bears, right? Because remember, California has a bear on their state flag. And then Washington State, they are the Cougars. Okay, so that's the large animal division, the LAD, the large animal division. Okay, so what are the other two divisions? There are going to be two other divisions, so let's talk about those. Okay, so let's talk about the next division in the Big Ten. It's going to be called the small animal division. And in the small animal division, we have a number of teams. I'm going to have to hold this back a little bit. So we got, sorry about the glare, Maryland, right? Terrapins, it's a turtle, but they're small. Michigan, Wolverines. I didn't say they weren't vicious. I saw a video recently of one Wolverine, true story, one Wolverine trying to be attacked by two wolves, and the Wolverine is just like working these wolves. It moves so fast they cannot get to it from behind. Like they're on both sides of it, and this thing is just a whirling dervish. It is impressive. So Wolverines, vicious but small. Wisconsin Badgers, same thing, vicious but small. Iowa Hawkeyes. So this is small animals, birds, reptiles, but it's all small things. Minnesota Golden Gophers, not to be confused with a regular gopher. Stanford is called the Cardinal, but their mascot seems to be like a pine tree. I don't know, but a cardinal, I'm like, yeah, they're a bird too. Okay, Oregon Ducks, birds, waterfowl. Oregon State are the Beavers, another small animal, and then the Washington Huskies, a small animal, large dog, but small animal. Okay, so that's your Big Ten small animal division. Okay, so stay tuned for the next division. Okay, and so for the third division in the Big Ten, I'm calling this the people and whatever division. In other words, some mascots I can identify as people, some are just like whatever, I don't even know. Okay, by the way, I had to flip my phone around and try to reduce some of the glare. So this is the people and whatever division. So first team, West Virginia, they're the Mountaineers. You know what they are. They look like Mountaineers. Ohio State, they're the Buckeyes. Whatever. I don't even know what the hell a Buckeye is. It's like a dude in overalls with like a head that's like looks like a giant basketball. Michigan State University, they're the Spartans. I know what Spartans are. That was my high school mascot. They're badasses from Greece. Indiana, they're the Hoosiers. Again, just like Ohio State, I got no help. I have no idea. In fact, I'm not even sure I don't even know what their mascot looks like. Like, I don't know what a Hoosier is. I mean, it's kind of racing tire, I guess. Illinois, the Fighting Illini. I'm guessing that refers to Chief Illiniwek and, Native Americans. So they're people, certainly. Purdue Boilermakers, they're named after a drink, which is cool. I mean, if you're in college and stuff, to be named after a really hard-ass drink. Boilermakers, no, they got their steam locomotive. I think that's what they're referring to. Guys, so it's an occupation. It's not like a person per se. It's like naming them the Purdue truck drivers. Okay, then Nebraska Cornhuskers. That's like saying, I mean, come on, Cornhuskers. That's like saying banana peelers or like apple cores. I mean, it's just taking the husks off corn. Everybody does it. I don't know why you'd want the whole damn state to have this mascot. And they don't even grow the most corn. Iowa grows the most corn. Iowa's just like, yeah, we take the husks off. It's not a big deal. Anyway, and then the last, I'm sorry I'm getting so much glare. There we go. The last is going to be USC. They're the Trojans. Again, I wouldn't, it's college, right? I wouldn't name a mascot after a brand of condoms, but hey, whatever's customary in college, So anyway, that's my people in whatever divisions. So that's my 3 divisions. They're not exactly equal in numbers, but who cares? I mean, it's the college football arms race. So we just got to do what we got to do. So anyway, I hope you can support that. Write to the Big 10, write to the commissioner, write to all these college presidents, and tell them you heard it here first on Tim Travels. Okay, so let's talk about earnings season, and this is a little trucking / financial talk. So let's talk about companies that are already reported earnings and what that kind of looks like for the rest of the industry. Okay, so several companies it's earnings season, and if you don't know what earnings season means, it means this is when publicly traded companies report their earnings, and they do it quarterly. And in the past I've talked about earnings season at publicly traded companies and what publicly traded companies are doing. And the reason that it's a thing is because they have to do it, right? By law, they have to do it. So they have to file these what are called 10-Qs with the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's public knowledge, not a public record, but public knowledge. So, and when they do these, they often have a call with investors and really with Wall Street analysts a lot of times, people that cover these companies, right, and analyze all their stuff. So, so anyway, without further ado, so Heartland Express, and remember, Heartland just recently acquired Smith, which is based in Roaring Springs, PA. They acquired Smith. And good news for Heartland shareholders is they said Smith was immediately accretive to earnings, meaning that Smith made an immediate impact on their bottom line or on their earnings per share. Their earnings beat estimates by 4 cents per share. So EPS, earnings per share, that's kind of the metric that the market uses. So Heartland Express, even with that acquisition of Smith, because sometimes you see sometimes there's costs and cost of integration, just cost of transactions that affect a company until they start realizing earnings, but that didn't happen here. So and Heartland Express's guidance was that H2, which means second half of calendar year 2022, they will have basically more freight. They did, by the way, though, they sold their Inland Empire, so Southern California terminal, for like $73 million. I'm sure they made some money on that deal, but I think it's interesting that I don't know if that means they're kind of like, because they did, they're a dry van company. I don't know if that means they're giving up on that market or if they got, they just think it's too expensive. I don't understand why they did that, except maybe they got another better plan. I do know they have a terminal also in Phoenix, so maybe they're just kind of consolidating. Maybe they're like, hey, it's close enough. We don't need one in, Riverside or San Bernardino County. So we'll just run out of Phoenix. Okay, KNX, speaking of Phoenix, Knight Swift, they beat estimates. I don't have the figure for that, but they said that their LTL acquisitions helped out their earnings, and that they're looking good for H2, for the second half of the year. Remember, they purchased a couple of LTL carriers, and I said this before and I'll say it again. KNX does not do stuff on a regional basis. So it would not surprise me that they're gonna fill out that LTL network at some point and really integrate the LTL network, the truckload network, and all the LTL carriers, into one big operation. I've already seen, back when I worked at Knight, we didn't go to Swift terminals, and Swift didn't go to Knight terminals, and we never went to anybody, we never parked at Abilene or Bar None or any of that. Like, there was no crossover. But it was kind of like we were on the same team, like, you know, like the Navy and the Marines are, or the Navy and the Army are, but there was inter-service rivalry. But I've seen more of that where Knight's using Swift terminals. I've seen Knight guys parked at Abilene lots. It just so I think that they're looking at more and more just big integration. JB Hunt beat estimates. They took a hit on the railroad stuff, but that probably was due to carrier issues, right? Because railroads were over capacity, having trouble crewing trains, but JB Hunt still beat estimates. By the way, JB Hunt just appointed a new CEO, and I apologize, I don't know her name, but I think it's a big deal that they have a female CEO. And let's be candid, this business has been dominated by white men for forever. So I think it's cool that you see women in the C-suite at these big companies. So that's good. Here's an interesting one though, because we know a lot of our friends here at Prime have taken their services elsewhere, and it seems like a lot of people land at Landstar. And Landstar is different than the other three companies that I just talked about, because Landstar there's no such thing as a Landstar company driver that I know of. But Landstar missed estimates by a pretty significant amount. They missed estimates by about 20 cents a share, which is probably, quick math, about wait a minute. Let's see. They were supposed to come in around $3.40 per share, so they missed by 20 cents. So what is that, like, 8% or something, 7%. Anyway, but some things that they said were interesting to me. Their length of haul, year over year, length of haul, down 6%. Now that doesn't mean that the drivers there aren't making as much as they ever did. It's just their length of haul is down 6%. And of course, that's over, thousands and thousands of trips, but it's still, it's a little bit interesting. If you're a guy that really wants to go long, coast to coast type of stuff. There was a 4% decline in total truck revenue. So that's 4% per truck, per unit, April to May. Now, they did say that it's stabilized since May, and they were kind of putting a positive spin on that stabilization, except that typically in July, rates would go up, so you would expect total truck revenue to go up. But again, we're talking large numbers, so it's a small percent, but it's a large number. There's two ways to look at it. One of the ways to look at it is that, when you're talking about a lot of things, even a small percentage, in actual numbers is a lot, right? Like, you say 4% of a million is 400, right? But excuse me, 4% of a million is 40,000. Oh, sorry. That's why that's why I've been underpaid my whole life. But no, so 4% of a million is 40,000, but 4% of 10 million, now we're 400,000. It starts to make a bigger impact, But so anyway, they said the total truck revenue is stabilized. And again, it's like I said, when your neighbor loses his job, it's a recession. When you lose your job, it's a depression. So there are probably a lot of individual drivers that are like, whatever, I didn't even notice it. But here's a number, and this is a number that actually shocked me. So they said, now keep in mind, Landstar is just a brokerage, right? They're a brokerage. Total providers, meaning total trucks under contract, year over year is up 25%. Year over year, 25% increase in the number of trucks they have contracts with. meaning the people, like people that got their own truck, go to Landstar. And that number is up to 111,126. That means that, and at first I was like, wait a minute, that can't be how many trucks they have under contract. But then I was like, yeah, that's exactly what that means. 111,000 trucks under contract. That's a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's, that's only, if you figure, now the numbers I always see are like, there's like 3 million truck drivers in America. But keep in mind, this is dry van. So the segment keeps getting smaller, right? It's dry van, and it's, dry van, truckload. I think they mostly do truckload. By the way, truckload doesn't mean that you won't have more than one stop. What it means is that you only have like the one client on the truck, if that makes sense. So for example, if we pick up, like I've had loads where I picked up 3 different places in Salinas from 3 different warehouses, but the client was still the same. That means truckload. Even though I made 3 stops and I delivered at one place, it still is a truckload. Same thing is if I picked up at one place, but I stopped 3 places, still truckload. Not to be confused with LTL. LTL would be 3 stops to pick up from 3 different customers. And even if they all went to the same place, it's still LTL because it's less than a truckload per customer. And by the way, truckload doesn't mean a full truck. It just means one customer dedicated to one trailer, essentially. So I was like, 111, but I guess that's their numbers. They would know 111, 126. That's a lot of drivers to keep moving. It really is. I mean, you think about Prime. Prime has around 8,000 drivers, maybe 8,000 to 9,000. Man. I mean, I know they're a big company. They're a big publicly traded company and everything, but that's a lot of balls to keep in the air. That's a lot of people to try to keep happy. So anyway, those are the updates that I have on some of the big, well-known publicly traded companies. The company that I've talked about several times, US Express, they don't actually. So what is today? I don't even know what the date is today, but like they're not reporting till August 3rd, which is sometime next week. I guess my initial impression is maybe it's just 90 days after they did their last report, so every quarter. But my sense of it is if you had good news, wouldn't you want to report early? Because good news always drives your stock price up. Why wouldn't you want to put out good news, I don't know, as soon as you get it? But because keep in mind, this is for the quarter ending June 30th. So August 3rd is what? 34 days later. I mean, and by the way, the numbers I'm giving you, I think, yeah. So, I don't know. You'd think if you had good news, you would want to get it out there sooner. But that's just my, I might be wrong. We'll see on August 3rd. I'll update you on that when they do their call. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.